some of the Irish, and I'll be involved with that. I'll report about it tomorrow. Cold here in Washington. You got to stand on that security line out there. I know I'm a sissy, but usually this time of year it moderates a little south of the Mason-Dixon line. Anyway, the Irish prime minister was in the White House. Little talk with President Trump today. He didn't have a lot to say. I mean, Ireland's a small country, 5 million in the Republic. They don't really have much to do with the Iranian war or NATO or anything like that. An interesting aside is that they were not part of Brexit. So when the British left the EU, Ireland stayed. And Ireland's very left-wing politically, although this prime minister doesn't come across as some kind of crazy guy. He seems to be pretty logical. Northern Ireland, communist. Really is. It's a communist place now in Northern Ireland. So anyway, Iran continues to dominate, and the president talked about it today. He's putting forth a very confident view of the military action, as he has to as commander-in-chief. And that is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. So some bad news for the president today. A man named Joe Kent, top U.S. counterterrorism official, 45 years old, career Army, patriot, who the president nominated to run the Counterterrorism Center, the NCTC. I don't know much about that. Anyway, he quit, saying that Iran, not an imminent danger to the USA. So he's out. And that embarrasses President Trump and the Trump administration. I guess that's what Mr. Kent wanted to do. Now, he's a Gold Star husband. His wife was killed in Syria in a terror suicide bombing. So this is a guy who's got emotion in fighting terrorism, but he does not believe that the Iranian action is warranted at this time. I can't report any more than that. I can't analyze the situation. I don't get the daily intel reports. I don't know. Now, today, when I'm over at the White House, I'm going to be doing some information gathering, and we will have, I hope, an unbelievable guest for our weekly podcast that will probably drop on Wednesday night. I can't say who, because this is a very delicate negotiation. But if I get that person, a lot of clarity will emerge. All right, so stay with us as always. Israel says it killed 2 top Iranian commanders yesterday. Their names don't really matter, but they were bad guys and deeply involved with the terrorist state of Iran. So they're dead, and the action goes on. Donald Trump is postponing his trip to China. That's pretty big. He was supposed to go at the end of this month, but he says now, because of the Iranian action, he's going to delay it. Roll the tape.
Right now, we're speaking to China. I'd love to, but because of the war, I want to be here. I have to be here, I feel. And so we've requested that we delay it a month or so.
Okay. The wise thing to do. China is kind of in the background. They're not doing much, even though they're very dependent on Iranian oil. I believe the United States could make some of that up, and that's going to be part of the discussions down the road. NATO got hammered by the president today. They're not stepping up. Are you surprised? I'm not. NATO despises President Trump. It's personal. And you can say all you want to say about it, but it's true. The Greenland stuff, the taunting, Europe is weak, all of that, they don't like it over there in Europe. And their interests are different than our interests. But what's really disturbing to me as a citizen of the world, remember, I've been to 86 countries, almost every European country, and I know what's going on over there, is that Europe has never really engaged in a war on terror, even after 9/11. really never have done it. We have done all the heavy lifting in the world. If you read my book, Killing the Killers, about the dismantling of Al Qaeda and ISIS and others, it's all the United States. Afghanistan, 90% USA. Iraq war, 90% USA. Some of the policies didn't work. But Europe has never really, even though they got hit time after time after time, they don't really care. Germany's the worst. The quote out of the German government is, "This is not our war. We have not started it," unquote. Well, you're ungrateful, Germany, and I'll tell you what. I'm really not pleased with Berlin. Ever since World War II, we've carried that country at a great expense. Okay, so after Third Reich was defeated by the Allies, we rebuilt, the United States rebuilt Germany. We didn't have to do that. Did not have to do it. Germans had no money, no ability to rebuild their own country. We did it. And when Stalin came in and tried to take it over, we opposed Stalin and the Soviet Union at great expense. And ever since then, we've carried Germany. Carried them. Are they grateful? No, they are not. Never have been. Not a big fan of the German government. Beautiful country, been all over it. Government? Spain's a socialist country. Wouldn't even allow U.S. Military planes to refuel on its soil. I'd boot Spain right out of NATO. They don't pay their dues. I don't know if you could do that, how you do it, but I propose let's boot them out. Why do we need them? And I'm not a jingoist, word of the day. I'm not. America's the greatest. We should do whatever we want. But this is ridiculous. Italy is an exception. Italy's a good, strong ally to the USA. But they don't care, in general, the EU and NATO, about what Iran does or what their potential for violence is. And the reason they don't care is they don't like Israel. Across the board in Europe, Israel got no friends there. None. Now, you can go back in history, you can do anti-Semitism. I don't know exactly why that is, but it's there. It has been there for thousands of years. And that is part of the equation. But they're weak. Collectively speaking, Europe is a very weak continent. Asia, much stronger than them. But the Asians aren't stepping up either. So the USA is alone in dismantling Iran, along with Israel, of course, but pretty much alone. And that is not a good situation. Now, back home, according to a Rasmussen poll, which is very friendly to President Trump, sample is good. Question is, based on what you know, how successful has the military operation against Iran been so far? Very somewhat successful, 61%, big number. Not very not successful at all, 29, not sure, 11. So that's a good poll for President Trump, but I guarantee you get a poll tomorrow from CNN or The Economist or one of these, say the exact opposite. So who knows? The Republican base still supports the president's action in Iran, except for the isolationists. And there are not many of them. All right. So what I would do, and if I do get to speak to the president today, which I don't think I'm going to, it's kind of a madhouse over there. I'd say, look, remember the COVID briefings? We need to do that with Iran. A couple of times a week, get the generals, not Hegseth, no political players at all, none. Just the general, the admiral in charge, a sit rep, which is a situation report for the American people, maybe twice a week. Here's what's happening. Boom, 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 boom. That would help. The word imminent, very troublesome. I'm going to get to the bottom of that, though, or I'm going to die trying. And tomorrow and the rest of the week, we're going to have some very good information here. And that is the memo. Fox News last week, sample is good. How well do you think capitalism in the USA is working? Well, 51%, Not well, 49. Not good news for capitalism. Second question, do you think it'd be a good thing or bad thing for the USA to move away from capitalism and towards socialism? Good thing 38, bad thing 61, and that's up 6 points since 2022. So the socialists are gaining in this country. Joining us now from Los Angeles is Kenan Spivak. He is a Real Clear Politics contributor. Wrote a column this week that caught my eye called The Marxist Wing of the Democratic Party. In fact, that broke yesterday. What is the Marxist wing? How powerful is it? Is it taking over the Democratic Party?
It is very powerful. Well, first of all, thanks for having me today. It
Sure.
is very powerful. It is not a big portion of the Democratic Party. According to a poll released just last week, maybe 15% of the Democrat Party self-identify as being in this wing. Let's assume that self-identification is imperfect, so it's a little bit more than that. So it's not a big part of the Democrat Party, but it is the energy of the Democrat Party. It is the funding of the Democrat Party. It is the activists in the Democrat Party. And the elected Democrat officials have been completely taken over by this wing. Listen to people like Chuck Schumer. I grew up in the same neighborhood as Chuck Schumer. He's older than me, but I knew him when we were both young. He was always a liberal. He was never this kind of crazy liberal that voter ID is racist, and Supreme Court justices who disagree with him should be objects of violence. The activist wing, the radical wing of the Democrat Party has taken control.
You don't believe Schumer's a Marxist. He's an opportunist. That's what Schumer is. He's a man of no seasons. He doesn't believe in anything. He just says whatever he thinks. He only says what he thinks will gain him power or whatever he's looking for, money. But first of all, let's define what your vision of Marxism is within the Democratic Party. What is it, Mr. Spivak?
Okay. And I agree with you. Chuck Schumer is an opportunist who's afraid of the Marxist wing. The Marxist wing is not particularly the old-fashioned Marxism that was anti-capitalist. Many in the Marxist wing believe in making money. What they are is intersectionalists, anti-Semitic, and opposed to American history as an example of exceptionalism. They believe that marginalized minorities have been unfairly treated by what they call the white patriarchy, which I guess is most of the traditional people who believe in Western values. And they want to remake that. They want to see groups that, in their view, don't have power, gain power. But unlike traditional Marxists, they're okay doing that in a capitalist environment.
But they do want to take money from successful white people, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. They don't particularly like billionaires. They're not happy when large corporations align with traditional values. But they're not necessarily seeking for the government to own the means of production. I mean, we know Mandami wants to own or open and operate supermarkets. But overall, they're not trying to take the means of production. They're not trying to privatize all of American industry. They want to increase taxes. They absolutely want wealth taxes on the richest Americans. But they do still believe that a capitalist orientation does help all people do better. They just want to reallocate the benefits of that system.
Yeah, they want to control the capitalism and make sure that people they don't like get punished. Now, you mentioned anti-Semitism, and so did I in my talking points memo. The root of Marxist anti-Jewish behavior and thought, what is that? Where did that come from?
All right. It comes from intersectional perspective. So let me make a point that's sort of by analogy. If you go back in history, there was a lot of anti-Semitism that arose from the crucifixion of Christ and a belief that Jews were responsible for that. That's not in any way the basis of this current anti-Semitism. The basis of it is a belief that Jews are disproportionately successful, that whether Jews in the United States or Israelis in the Middle East, they have garnered the benefits, the economic benefits of success, and the belief is that they're not sharing them with Palestinians or others who are economically much lower down the ladder of success.
Or
So
they
it's an analogy.
exploited, or they exploited those people to get the wealth.
Yes, it's an
Okay.
analogy to the white-black situation in the United
Here in the
States.
United States.
And
Okay.
right.
Now, do you believe that most European countries buy into that vision, that anti-Jewish vision, based on the economics of the situation? Is that what's going on here in Iran? They don't like Israel because Israel is an oppressive state that's exploited the poor.
In Europe, we have a combination of traditional anti-Semitism based on Christ and intersectional woke anti-Semitism, particularly with mass migration, as the number and percent of Muslim immigrants to Europe has risen. So the European situation is a bit different than the situation in the US.
All right, so immigration has taken is a factor in the growing fear to confront terrorist states like Iran. Final question for you. In the United States, the national media is sympathetic to what you call the Marxist wing of the Democratic Party. How did that happen?
Journalists traditionally have been at least political liberals. Our main journalism schools, Columbia School of Journalism, Northwestern, have been putting out liberal journalists for many, many years. I mean, Walter Cronkite, who people thought of as the most revered voice in news in the United States, by any definition, was a traditional liberal. We've seen those liberals move further to the left and further to being progressives. When progressives complete their transition, they become part of what I refer to as the Marxist wing. Some call it the pro-Hamas wing, but that's conflating different issues of the Democrat Party.
All right, so you think it's all about indoctrination to a progressive ideology that comes out of the universities. That's what's driving me. I see it a little bit differently. I see that the heads of these corporations, not trained journalists, I'm talking about an Iger of Disney, okay, people who run these mammoth media corporations, they are devoted left wingers, some are progressives, and they live in a bubble where everybody they know feels and thinks the same way. That's how I think this has evolved.
I think you're completely correct. I'm a former senior executive of MGM UA and other studios. These are my friends. I live in the same neighborhood with these people. You're 100% correct. I want to point out, and it relates not just to them, but in general to this problem. It's not just the universities. For 50 years, the American Federation of Teachers and the National Education Association have moved to the very far left. These are the teacher unions in elementary school, in high school and junior high. This is where action civics is being taught. We have a 50-year problem that starts in first grade. And those are the people who today are running these major corporations, not just in Los Angeles. So I completely
in the
agree
urban
with
areas, that's for sure. All right, Mr. Spivak, very interesting column. If you want to check it out, it's called The Marxist Wing of the Democratic Party. And we appreciate you talking with us today. Thank you. Final thought of the day from Washington. So what happens in these White House things is that you go and there's what they call a reception. So there are a bunch of Irish donors to the Republican Party and President Trump's enterprises. They'll be there. Politicians, a few. I'm not expecting a mountain of politicians to show up. But it's okay. It's cordial. Food is always great. They don't give you a lot of libations. They don't want you getting drunk. Not Andrew Jackson's crowd. Remember Andrew Jackson's inauguration? His supporters got invited to the White House and they sacked it. They wrecked it because they all got drunk. That's not what happens. But I will have a bunch of conversations with people that I see that I wouldn't ordinarily have because I don't know where they are. And that is what I'm aiming at today. I did forget the touts, but I want to tell you a couple of things. That we have this podcast, and I'm working on a very special guest, as I told you earlier. That will drop tomorrow night, Wednesday night, if I get it. Now, if I don't get it, I'm going to tell you. I'll tell you. But it's scheduled. We're scheduled to do the interview tomorrow during the day. And I think I'm going to get it. Because if they cancel at the last minute, that's not good for anybody. So that's going to drop, and you're going to want to watch that because it's going to be very important for you and understanding what's going on with your country, President Trump, and Iran. Second thing is that I say this, but USA Today, USA 250 hats are our fastest selling item ever. And, you know, most people are patriots in this country. We're not idiots here. There are the radical left jerks and the radical right isolationists. They're there, but not many of them. I'm proud of my country 250, and I'm wearing that hat all spring and summer. And then we have the No Spin Nation that's spreading the word, and that's a beautiful hat as well. So that's on BillO'Reilly.com. All right. Word of the day, do not be Loesch. Louche. I can't even spell my words of the day here. Louche, no S. Louche. Loesch. French word. It's okay. I'm not down on the French as much as I was during the Iraq War. Remember that? When they really screwed America. France did. France is, you know, they're waffling like everybody else about Iran. And remember, they got hit pretty bad. So I write about that in Killing the Killers. And France got whacked. And today in Paris still remains. They deny it, but it's true. There are Muslim neighborhoods in Paris where the police can't go. The French police cannot go in those neighborhoods because they're controlled by jihadists, armed jihadists in Paris. And that all goes back to Iran. Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, all goes back to Iran. France is out, you know, but they're not as bad as Germany. Ooh. I should book some German guy. Call a German ambassador. If he wants to come on and take some heat, he never will. But let's put a call into him for next week. We'll do that. All right. So that is it for us today from Washington, D.C. I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thank you very much for checking us out on radio and television. And we'll see you again tomorrow. I don't think we have a king. If we did, the king would have beheaded a lot of people over the weekend. Right? It was a quick weekend for me. I was upstate New York trying to get a little foliage thing going on. And foliage is so this year. But I was tracking the No Kings protest. There was one up in Kingston, New York, right close to the Hudson River. And it was, a decent crowd. It's a small town. They were out there, and I didn't engage, but I was very curious to what kind of people were there and what the tone of it was. I got to tell you, I was impressed with the rallies across the country, and that is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. Not impressed politically, because I'm not on the side of the people who hate Trump and think he's the devil and he's Hitler and the country's going down a drain. I don't see it that way at all. I think Trump is divisive. He's not a uniter. He has a vision. He's carrying out the vision. He's succeeded in neutralizing Iranian nukes, big. Succeeded in getting 20 hostages, big. I think he's going to get a deal in Ukraine. Just my opinion right now, but I think it's trending in that direction. Oil prices here are coming down. You may know that. They're coming down pretty hard. And food prices, I don't know what's going to happen. So I don't see him as a disaster at all, as far as being a technician in the White House. The people I saw were very emotional about hating Trump. And that's fine. They have a perfect right to hate him. Just don't act out. And they didn't. And that's what impressed me. So here are the numbers. We can't get an accurate assessment of how many people protested on Saturday. The organizers say 7 million. It seems a little high to me. Chicago was a big one, 250,000. DC, 200,000. New York was kind of a bomb, 100,000. That's not a big protest for New York. Very liberal town. LA, they can't count them because there's not enough police to do it. LA is such a disaster. But arrests, very, very few. 12 in LA, 13 in Denver. Portland had some people trying to destroy the ICE headquarters, so that was serious, but there weren't a lot of them. Chicago had 15 arrests. So, when you have millions of people out there and you don't have any violence, looting, and arrests, that should be applauded. Because again, dissent is a vital part of a democracy. You've got to be able to dissent, even if you don't agree with the dissent. And I don't agree with the progressive left at all. I think they have done more harm to this country in, 20 years than the Democratic Party did in 100 years. It's a progressive far left that really is damaging this country, in my humble opinion. However, if they want to go out and demonstrate, all right. And it's not hard to get people out. 75 million people voted for Kamala Harris. That's a big pool, to choose from. It's not hard to mobilize people. And then there were the organizers. The ACLU, a group called Indivisible, that's a Soros-funded group. 5501 movement, Move On, American Atheists, Tax Fairness, Blue Future, LBQ stuff, Black Struggle Organization, Planned Parenthood, Pride at Work. All of these are far left groups, every one of them. And Soros pumped an enormous amount of money into those groups, probably more than $1 billion. So this isn't anything that's unusual. You got huge money behind them. You got 75 million who didn't like Trump. That's a big crew to choose from. So they got him out there. Anyway, the criticism of the president, I watched that, I had my staff watch it too, was general. Roll the tape.
But primarily my biggest focus today is ICE. What they're doing is unconstitutional, it's not fair, it's terrorism.
Okay, so it's like, the country's a fascist country now, and it's going down a drain, and no. Now, one column did catch my attention. It was written by Colby Hall, who we like here, for Mediaite, which is a website, social media website, which analyzes what's going on in the press. So all the people in the press read it. Here's what Colby wrote about the march. He goes, "The marches are virtuous, showed moral clarity when cynicism was easier. But virtue without strategy is performance. And performance without follow through is paralysis. The crowd made noise. Now it has to make demands and back them with something more than Saturday's turnout, unquote. And Colby Hall joins us now from Brooklyn. So the marches are virtuous. How do you know?
Well, I didn't go, but judging by the people that I know, but what I meant by virtuous is that they were principled, right? They,
All of
to
them?
your point, well, I don't know if all of them, but I think generally you can sort of, I'm sure, like the individuals that were arrested, I trust that, I believe in the authorities that arrested them for good reason. You can take 1,000 people and there's always going to be 2 or 3 nutters. Those nutters don't define the
Yeah,
group.
but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking, you say the marchers are virtuous. There are a lot of Antifas out there. There are a lot of anarchists. They didn't misbehave, again, to their credit, on a mass level. There are a lot of people who want communism and socialism, the Bernese bros. All of those people are virtuous? Come on.
Well, I'm just going to echo what you said earlier. I think what they did was patriotic, right? I mean, in as much, and look, I don't agree with everything that the sort of organizers put forth, but the right to protest is constitutionally protected. And to your point, like for the most part, it was peaceful and principled.
All right.
I don't know that there was a lot of Antifa.
I'm giving you a hard time because I think you were too general in this column. So the marches are virtuous. They showed moral clarity. So I don't think that letting 15 million foreign nationals into this country, as Joe Biden did, is moral. I think it's immoral. All right. I think it destroyed.
I would agree with you, but right. But
Well,
I don't think.
Wait a second. And I don't think that watching 4,000, mostly African Americans, be gunned down in the streets of Chicago is moral at all. Now, these demonstrators, Colby, I would say 90% of them, all right, don't want immigration enforcement, and they don't want National Guard to go in and stop mini Holocaust in Chicago. They don't want it. How is that moral clarity?
I don't think there's a mini Holocaust going on in Chicago right now. I think there is crime, absolutely, and it's been a problem, although it's been getting better. It's at a 60-year low. I do think that I agree with you on the Biden administration failed immeasurably in the way that they handled the border so poorly. And I think he paid the penance of that by, well, Kamala Harris did, by not getting elected. I think that was a huge, huge issue. I don't think this protest was about the Biden administration. And I don't even know, you had the sound clip of the protester protesting ICE. That's a complicated issue. I think that the draconian way that many ICE people, remove people in masks without due process is critical. But I think the authoritarian things that the Trump administration are doing, are sort of eroding our Constitution. The posse comitatus does not allow federal troops.
But the Supreme Court is going to hear that. They're going to hear that. We should let that play out. But these people have already condemned Trump as being immoral, as being a fascist. They've already done it. And then you say they show moral clarity by doing it. I disagree vehemently with that. Let me
I think patriotically. All right. Well, that's your point.
And that's okay. I mean, this is why we have this program and why we have robust debate. I don't think that's moral clarity. I think you have to basically take it issue by issue. Now, when I had Tom Homan on, and you saw it last Wednesday, I scolded him gently because he was a stand-up guy for coming on, by not giving enough information about the ICE agents and what they do and what they're ordered to do. Because the Homeland Security Department doesn't seem that they think they have an obligation to tell the American people what the deuce is going on. They do. They do. Now there, I'm 100% with the demonstrators who say, well, we can't have, a system whereby people are snatched up. I don't know what the guidelines are. They haven't been put out there. I do know that the judge's deportation orders, there are these left-wingers don't want those enforced. The progressive movement does not want to send anybody back. They'll say maybe hardened criminals, but they don't want DUI people sent back. They don't want wife abusers sent back. They don't want them. And that's not moral clarity to me. So I think that the moral high ground is held by the people who want to enforce the law, but they have to do a better job of explaining why they're doing what they're doing. Is that reasonable?
I think that's entirely reasonable. And I would go further, and I'd say most Americans who look at this, sort of logically and reasonable, would say that if you are a hardened criminal, or if you've done any serious crime and you're here illegally, you should be deported, right? Of course, everyone is afforded due process, if only to find out you got the right guy, right? Presuming you got the right guy and you know that they did some sort of crime on any scale, you lose the right to be here regardless, right? I think most people
they need to clarify what the 1952 law is and how it's being enforced. And it's a scandal that we haven't had it. We have a woman in Houston, I want to run the soundbite, get your reaction to it, who had a bunch of friends, and they were out protesting against Trump. Roll that tape.
When you see something's wrong, you've got to stand up and do something. You can't just put your head in the sand and hope it goes away. And whether it affects you or your neighbor doesn't matter. You have to stand up for everyone. We're one nation under God. And with liberty and justice for all.
Well, that's just virtue signaling. You know what that is. It's like, well, what's wrong, lady? What are you objecting to? What exactly is the problem here? And
that was the essence of my column, really, was that the protest was better at putting up social media posts than it was for actually doing any change. Meaning, what we have found here, what I sort of found, is that you go on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter and you see all these people putting up photos saying, like, look what I did, I protested.
Right.
And it kind of goes away. So I do believe that there's a real concern that there's no organization. These people feel good about themselves because they protested and put up a witty sign, and then they go back to normal lives.
But
and
if you were King Colby, I don't think there's been a king.
One day.
There's been a King Canute, but I don't think ever a King Colby. If you were king, you would want to reverse some of the Trump policies, right?
No, I would want a more reasonable sort of approach where there were checks and balances. I think what I would, if I were king, I wouldn't be a king because I'd be for American democracy and the Constitution, and I would ask Congress.
All right, but what has Trump done that you would like to see banished?
Well, I would like to see due process. One, I would like to see. I think the government shutdown was a strategic way to cut a lot of staff. I mean, under the shutdown, the executive branch, the OMD gets a ton of power, so they've been able to fire and lay off a bunch of government workers.
So you think that it was a contrived shutdown to fire people?
I do. I think it was.
Really?
I think it was a clever strategic move by. I mean, it was sort of laid out in the Project 2025, and the cutting of USAID, the Doge cuts, all of that stuff sort of fell outside of the realm of what we've.
I guess it's possible.
Standards.
But look, say you're Senator John Thune. So you're not a king. I just downgraded you to a senator. So Senator Schumer walks in. He looks at you and he says, we're going to shut down a government. We're going to, all of us in Congress, all Democrats, unless Republicans agree to provide taxpayer health care for 7 million undocumented people. That's what Schumer did. And he knew, but Schumer knew that the Republican Party could never do that. Ever in a million years.
You're oversimplifying a very complicated healthcare system. Will undocumented people, they have to be treated at ERs, A. B, the more you cover people with this healthcare system, and Obamacare is not great, I will agree with that, but it's better than what came before and should be improved. And neither party has put forth anything to try to improve that. But when you cut that funding, guess who's going to pay more? It's all the other Americans that rely on the Affordable Health Care Act, right? And those prices are going to go way up. And that's a real problem. that the country has to face.
Thune and Johnson, the two leaders in Congress, both said to Schumer, we will negotiate this with you. What exactly you just said. But the facts of the matter are, okay, that the Congressional Budget Office estimates if the Republican Party and Trump said, yeah, okay, we'll let you have an extension of Obamacare that will pay for the health care of 7 million undocumented people. That would cost the United States of America, this is CBO number, $662 billion over 10 years. The Republican Party is never going to do that in a million years. So the Democrats knew when they came in that this was going to shut it down, Colby, and they did it to make a stand against Trump. And that's the truth.
I think you're right to say that this was a protest against Trump because the Democrats are in disarray. It's cliche. They have no power. This is the only thing they can do.
That's the line, right? And that's what happened.
But I will say also, Trump and his allies have been talking about repeal and replace Obamacare for what, 10 years? And they got nothing. And so if Obamacare or the American Health Care Act and our American healthcare system is so broken and for profit and people are making billions of dollars off of this, where is the government responsibility to try to fix it?
And listen, I agree with that 100%, that there's got to be a big There's got to be a big summit meeting between both parties to come up with a healthcare system that's, number one, fair, okay? Because we do need to have safety nets for older people and people who are have to have them, but not giveaways. Look, I reported last week, and how many times have you heard, Colby? How many times have you heard, from a Democrat, the federal government doesn't pick up any of the undocumented health bills? How many times have you heard that?
Too many times.
Right. And so we come up with, last week, the state of Oregon, in its budget, has $1.5 billion,
right,
all right, allotted for health care for undocumented people, because they take Medicaid, where the feds match it dollar for dollar, and hit it right into the undocumented community. So the Democrats aren't telling the truth there. They're gaming the system. But you're right.
I learned that from you on the News Nation town hall. That's where I learned that from you.
Right.
Good stuff. Right.
So let's have Schumer open the government, because the Democrats are the ones that are closed it. And then Thune and Johnson, you set up a summit meeting and you lay out legislation. I think that's the way to go. Last word.
I think the Trump administration could be real heroes right now if they put forth a plan. In the way that they settled peace, did the impossible by causing a ceasefire and discussing peace in the Middle East. If they could put forth a real healthcare plan that was better and more affordable to everyone, that's when he would get the Nobel Peace Prize. And so I would encourage the Trump administration.
But he's not going to do it. He's not. The Republican Party and President Trump are not going to pay the health bills of undocumented people. They're not.
Fine. I mean, so let's have the conversation, but put something forth. Don't say we're not going to do anything. We're going to do nothing. Let's start the dialogue. That's what I think.
All right, Colby, we appreciate you taking the time. Thanks. Good debate.
Well, always good to be here.
If you guys want to comment on the debate, bill@BillO'Reilly.com, bill@BillO'Reilly.com, name and town. Okay, it is final thought, October 20th, 2 months before Christmas and all of that. You can save a lot of money by buying your gifts now. So there are sales everywhere because they want to get rid of the autumn stuff and all of that. They want to move out a whole bunch of stuff. And you can give, if you're a premium or concierge member on our store, we're giving you stuff. We will sell out of a lot of that. So stack it up. Make a list. All right, here's what I want to give Shelly. Here's what I want to give Seymour, whoever it may be. You get a little thing, bump. Then you look for the discounts now, because once closer it gets, they're not going to mark stuff down. Just the cheap garbage they can't move. The premium stuff doesn't get marked, but now you can find it. So Final thought, I want you to, be financially solvent. You can save 40% on gift giving if you start early. Thank you very much for watching and listening to the No Spin News. We'll see you again tomorrow.